Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Seafarer Social Podcast. Today we are joined by Captain Sushant Bhatia. He is somebody that has many accolades, depth of experience within the maritime industry. He received the President of India's award. He has worked across numerous different companies in Dubai, in India, and he is of course a captain himself. So I'm really excited to speak to Captain Sushant today, learn a bit more about his career, learn about a little bit more about India as a whole. We've had many of guests on the podcast already from India, and I always think it's really interesting discussing with Indian guests the future of India as a maritime labor market because everybody is very bullish about India as a whole. But I know that right now, from a government perspective, they're investing heavily into maritime. This new DG of shipping you have in India is very, very good. So we'll get into all of that. But before we start anywhere, Captain, we always like to ask our guests, how are you?
I'm great, Carl, firstly, and thank you for having me on the podcast. I really believe that you're doing a very good job on the podcast. I've been fortunate enough to see a few of your past podcasts, so I think you're taking up a very good step towards the maritime industry and inviting guests across various genres and across various sectors in the maritime industry. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Huge pleasure to have you on, and thank you for the support. So, Captain, you told me just before we hit record that you are from Mumbai,
Right.
which is a big, big, big maritime city in India. Many of the big shipping companies have offices there. Um, Tell me about your career. What was it that first inspired you when you were a boy to pursue a career in maritime?
Yeah, that's a nice question, and I would start off by saying that honesty is one virtue that rewards you with a good night's sleep, and also gives you the luxury to have a poor memory. So I think honesty was one of the skills that was instilled in me, or rather, a virtue that was instilled in me right since childhood. It all began with my father, who was also a former sailor,
Okay.
and he was of course on the technical side, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to be on the deck side and ultimately become a captain. So I think he was one of my early inspirations, and I think the virtue that he inculcated in me in terms of honesty not just helped me within my own family, but also on board. I think that's one of the most important virtues while you're sailing on board, because you're sailing with that bunch of 20-25 people, and the more honest and the more transparent you are with them as a team, the more it helps you excel better. So I think that was an inbuilt skill in me that helped me perform better. And also in my formative years, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a hybrid program to join the Merchant Navy. So typically in India, we've got training schools, or in any part of the world, you've got training schools which help you join the maritime sector. So you need to undergo a pre-sea training. I was fortunate enough to do a pre-sea training with the Indian Navy, which is basically the defense side of it. So I got my training done under a hybrid program with the Indian Navy to ultimately join the Merchant Navy. So I think I was very, very fortunate to be actually training on a training ship. I trained on IMS Vikrant, which was former British HMS Hercules, the
Yeah.
former British warship. And then after
Wow.
completing my yeah, so that was one of a kind experience that I had. So our training ship was not just merely a phrase training ship, but an actual training ship. And I think with the defense sector and with the Indian Navy, it gave me certain values such as discipline and teamwork, which I believe has no substitute in today's times. I'll give you an interesting incident about teamwork. When I first came into the Indian Navy and I joined them, we started, working in teams and as groups. And for the first time in my life, when you did something wrong, the entire group was punished. So even if one particular member of the group did something wrong, it was the entire group to be punished. At first, we found this rule to be extremely absurd, coming from the civilian cozy homes that we belong to and getting into a typical defense setup. But then, over a period of time, when these particular things were instilled in us, it gave me a feeling that, a team is only as strong as the weakest link. So, if you move together as a team, and if you are stronger together as a team, is the only way of succeeding. I think that was something which I still take with me, and it's pretty much applicable on board as well. So, I think my formative years, both sailing as a child with my father and joining the Indian Navy as my stepping stone to the Merchant Navy, helped in making me what I am today. So, yeah.
Fantastic. What a background. And in terms of academic, I read somewhere that you were also one of the highest graded, one of the highest graded students within the nautical science in terms of your excellence in academic studies. Is that correct?
Right, right. You're absolutely right about that. Uh, I would like to, at the outset, break some academic notions that, a lot of youngsters who want to join the Merchant Navy have that, this profession is very much achievable without academic intelligence or without a lot of hard work or studies. And there is also a lot of, impression about the fact that Merchant Navy only requires a lot of practical skills. You just don't have to be Popeye the Sailor Man who's just all muscle, but you also need to be somebody with a lot of muscles right here at the top. So I think shipping as a fraternity and shipping as a profession requires a lot of deep research, a lot of strong emotional as well as intellectual quotient in order to succeed, and that's something that I've lived by and something that I strongly propagate to the youngsters who are looking at Merchant Navy as a career. So, strangely, some of the accolades that you mentioned about me were the accolades that I wasn't aware of or not preparing for before I received them. So, I completed my schooling from Don Bosco's. It's a convent school based out of Mumbai, India, and happened to be, fortunately, one of the toppers there. I then, as I told you, happened to join one of the Indian Navy hybrid programs where I completed my pre-sea training and was also awarded by the Admiral of the Indian Navy. And then I followed it up with my onboard training. Completing my onboard training, I went for my Officer of the Watch exam, which we call the second mate's exam in India, and cleared it from Mumbai in the very first attempt. So in India, we've got an integrated program just like other countries, which rewards you a bachelor's in nautical science at the end of your pre-sea training after completing your relevant exams for OOW. You get a bachelor's in nautical science. So the national topper for that particular academic program gets awarded by the president. It's called the
Hmm.
PGM or the President's Medal. And that was something strangely that I wasn't aware of. I
Wow.
completed my entire training, I completed my entire academic curriculum, and I never knew something like that exists. And at the end of it, one fine day, I got a call and I got an email stating that so and so, President's House and my training institute and my company that I was sailing with has been invited for attending this particular program. And I was really, really thrilled about it. So it all turned out well. I was fortunately not sailing at that point in time. And I happened to attend the convocation and receive an award from the President of India, the then President of India, and the Governor of State. So I think,
Wow.
yeah, so I think it's very, very important that we convey the right message to our youth today. That Merchant Navy is not just about traveling and seeing the world and having brawn and all the practical skills. It's also about having academic excellence along with practical skills that can actually lead to a very fruitful career. And there's another thing that I would like to highlight here for a lot of your viewers, uh, that we often say it's never too late to start. In my case, I have something else to say about this. It's never too early to start. And I think why I say that is more often than not in my career, I've often heard people saying that, you're too young for this. So I would like to tell all the budding cadets, all the budding engineers who are wanting to join the profession that it's never too early. It's never too early to start your preparations. It's never too early to dare to do something that you want. It's never too early to take up a curriculum to study something, just like it's never too late. And similarly, in terms of promotions and your personal progression, I think it's never too early to start. It's always a good time, as early as you can, developing a mindset, developing your skills, developing your virtues, which will eventually lead to a superior performance. So, we've got a sector today with artificial intelligence, crypto, the world of unicorns, where you've got 20-year-olds being CEOs of companies. So I think that itself pretty much defies the logic that it's too early to start. So whoever says that it's too early for you to start, you're not good enough right now, you need some more time. I think it's self belief that matters the most, listening to that inner voice that matters the most rather than anything else. So that's probably what I want to say. Rather than this particular academic track record that I can boast of, I think it's the belief that has led me to achieve whatever little I've been able to achieve in life.
Very well said, Captain. Very well said. There's a couple of things there I want to ask. The first thing is, would you say that you are somebody who is naturally gifted with academic excellence, or are you somebody who is just a natural hard worker, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I would say, it's you could say it's a combination of both. Uh, because if you just have one particular side of it, the other side of the coin will probably miss out. So there's no doubt about the fact that I began my academic career both at the school level as well as at the Indian Navy level, being good at academics. I was somebody who was naturally very inclined towards academics right from the start. But I also believe that academic excellence at the school level, which has got certain completely different subjects, and academic excellence at the maritime level, which has subjects which are very, very different from any other industry. You don't have the typical physics, chemistry, and maths that you would have in a particular industry, or a
Yeah.
biology that you would have in a particular industry. It's celestial navigation, it's terrestrial navigation, it's chart work, it's stability, etc. And concepts which are very, very different and vague, which require a lot of imagination skills. It's not it's not mere mugging up, or it's not mere learning certain things that will help you do well, but it's also having opening up your imagination, as we say, beyond the horizon and across the celestial sphere, to get an idea about what you want to actually do. So I think it's a combination of hard work along with a God-gifted natural talent or a natural skill for academic excellence that will ultimately lead you to become something better.
Well said. Your parents must be very proud. How old were you when you became a master?
That's a very nice question to ask. I would have avoided that question, but then yes, I was 32, 33 years of age when I got my
Very
command.
young. Very young.
Yeah, right. So I'll tell you an interesting anecdote. When I got my command, uh, I was the fourth youngest person on board. The only three people younger to me at that point of time were the cadets, both the deck and the engine cadets, and the trainee seamen, and the third mate. So probably the fourth or the fifth youngest person on board. But I think it's something that teaches you a very important lesson as well. That respect is something that is not dependent on age. We often have a lot of culture, especially in the Eastern world, where we believe that we must respect people purely because they're elder to us. I think we do believe it is important to respect people who are elder to us, but that alone should not be the sole criteria of respect. And I think respect is something that can be, commanded, and something not demanded. When people observe your character, when people observe your persona, when people see how you respond to situations, they tend to automatically develop a sense of respect for you. So I joined that particular ship in command as a master, being probably the fourth youngest person on board. But I ended my contract being friends and family with most of my crew, and I think that's one particular group or batch that I'm still in touch with. We still have a WhatsApp group where we share the interesting videos or conversations that we've had from that particular ship, and that's something that still remains special to me. So I think age should not be a barrier for any kind of an achievement, and I think rather it should be an asset, and it should be perceived rather positively.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the finest masters I've met have been sometimes in their 20s, sometimes in their early 30s, actually, for that matter. And a lot of them are Indian. Actually, a lot of them are Indian. In terms of leadership, what are some of the most challenging situations you've had to face as a captain, and how did you navigate them?
Yeah. So when you reach a level which is, a senior officer's level, be it a captain or a chief officer or any other senior management officer or a chief engineer, I think the biggest challenge for us becomes dealing with the most important yet complex element, which is humans.
Yeah,
We
sure.
humans are resources which are, we say, capable of controlling all other resources. So I think man management is something which is always one of the biggest challenges. And I would like to tweak one of the taglines of the organization that I work with, Fleet Management. Limited, is that we are powered by people. As an organization, as an industry, uh, we are heavily powered by people. So if we say that there is technology that drives us, or there is a particular sector that drives us, it would be highly inappropriate. I think it's people that truly drive us. So coming back to your question with regard to the challenging situation that I encountered, I think every master would probably end up saying what I will be telling you is the first time I took command. It was a mixture of both high amount of enthusiasm, high amount of stress, high amount of workload. To add to my misery, we also had a sire inspection, which is an inspection done on tanker
Yeah.
vessels by oil majors. We had that particular inspection as well. And me being a new fresh master, tried to involve myself in every single thing. I had a chief officer who was not very familiar with the kind of ship operations we were doing. So I had to supervise that as well. So the entire cacophony or the medley, that I got through in my first command, in my first few weeks itself, was too much for me to handle. So I think what I learned from that is that as a leader, especially as a new or a young leader, we must learn the art of delegation and the
Yeah,
art of
sure.
trusting. What happens is that as a young leader or a young master, you always want to be perfect in everything you do. You always want to take charge. You want to micromanage. You want to do things yourself. And that is where probably you might end up, not quite achieving what you really want to achieve. So I think it's very important to delegate stuff, especially in a maritime sector where there's odd working hours involved, a lot of fatigue involved, limited number of people, limited resources. So I think that was quite challenging for me. And over a period of time, as I settled down in my command, I understood the importance of delegation, the importance of trust. I'll quote something from Fleet Management Limited CEO Captain Rajalingam. He's somebody who inspires me a lot, and he often says that we must learn to trust, verify, and empower. I think these three words are something that play a very important role in my life as well. I think only when we learn to do these things as leaders will we be able to create future leaders for us. So I think that was one of the lessons and challenges from my first command. One being dealing with humans, which are the most complex yet valued resources, and the second being trying to do everything myself, which I would believe is not the right approach.
And leading by trust. It was trust. What was the next one?
Yeah, trust, delegate, trust,
Delegate.
verify, and empower.
Trust, verify, and empower. I really like that. That's brilliant. How many contracts did you do as a master?
So I did about a year as a master before, leaving sailing. I also sailed with my family on board. So even during my time as chief officer and as master, I liked sailing with my family. So I wanted to give them a taste of both sailing with me as a chief officer as well as sailing with me as a master, and the difference that they saw across both those ranks. So I think I got the best of both worlds.
Nice. And what kind of vessel types were you on?
So I've always been sailing on oil and chemical tankers. So it was quite a busy run on those those type of vessels.
What was it that made you interested in transitioning to the shore based work?
Yeah. So I would say my transition from, a sailing career to a career ashore was quite organic. Unlike most others, who decide to come ashore once they take their command, I was fortunate enough to, start working ashore in a lot of projects, a lot of part-time, assignments being allocated to me with the company that I was sailing with. So I began coming ashore. I began my career ashore, although on rotation on vacations when I was a second mate. So I
Ah,
started
okay.
that off quite early. I was given opportunities to work in various departments such as QHSC, marine, commercial operations, training. I've also been an active part of cadet recruitment, been a part of several interviews for recruiting cadets. I've been a part of companies' flagship leadership programs, which I ended up training to the other senior officers that we had. So I think it's been a natural transition for me, and I think the shift from sailing to coming ashore is comparatively quite challenging if you decide to do it at a later stage, because you get cocooned in your particular comfort zone. And I also believe, that's my personal opinion, of course, you could have multiple opinions and people could believe otherwise, but
Sure.
then I do believe that it's very, very important to see both the sides of the coin. So I was fortunate enough to have the exposure to view both the sides of the coin while I was sailing on vacations, although I had to sacrifice a bit of my vacation time for it, which I think a lot of seafarers wouldn't want to. But I think life at sea makes you far more mentally and physically prepared in handling the challenges ashore, considering how tough the life on board is. I often tell my wife, when she asks me, how do you feel coming ashore? What difference do you observe between sailing and coming ashore? I still strongly believe, it might be an unpopular opinion, that sailing is far more mentally and physically exhausting as compared to working ashore. So I do believe our seafarers deserve a lot more respect as frontline workers as compared to what they receive at present, because the kind of role that they execute, they literally run about 80 to 90% of the supply chain in the world. So I think it's pretty much important to recognize our seafarers for the beautiful job that they do. Organizations should not end up believing that it's the shore ultimately that alone calls the shots. I think a team will only be as strong as its seafarers. So it's equally important to value them. And secondly, for me, while transitioning ashore, I had completed my MBA in human resource management quite early. So I'd taken a short break from sailing and I had done my Masters of Business Administration and Human Resource Management. And as I tell you, there was a certain, block of people that told me that, you're too early to do an MBA. You're not ending up taking a shore job pretty much soon. You're just a second officer and you're doing an MBA. It's pretty early. And, today, when I look back at my decision, I am working as an assistant general manager in the marine HR or the fleet personnel division. And I think it's that particular decision that is working in my favor today as I implement what I learned during my MBA into my practical application ashore. So I think it's learning something is never a wrong decision, and nothing that is fodder for your brains ever goes waste. So I think that's the message that I would like to give.
Captain, do you ever take a minute to reflect on your journey? Because just speaking to you for the last 20 minutes, it's actually astounding how much you've accomplished in such a short space of time. MBAs, Master Mariner, transitioning to a shore based role. It's academic excellence, award from the president. I mean, this is just phenomenal stuff. Do you ever take a moment to reflect on your journey?
Uh, Carl, thank you for saying these words. It's quite humbling as well as flattering at the same time. But the fact that if I would let myself take a moment and think about these things, then it would probably get to my head. So I think the best I do is I don't quite think about it at all. I believe that this is just the start of my journey. I'd like to share with you something that, I was attending one of the leadership sessions organized by our company, Fleet Management Limited, just a couple of, days back. And we had a very interesting thing that the professor ended up asking us. He asked us, how long do you think are you going to live? So most of us answered in the span of 60 to 80 years of age, which is the typical life expectancy in most countries. Some of the Asian countries being on the lower side, and some of the European countries being on the higher side. Uh, and we got a wonderful answer from the professor. He said that he believes that he end up living for about 123 years, and we were quite amazed by that answer. So he gave us an interesting statistic which said that in 1947, the average life expectancy was between 35 to 40 years of age. And as we speak today, the average life expectancy in India is between 65 to 70 years of age. So if we go by that particular graph, most of us are probably, most of the people of your and my generation today are probably all poised with the technological innovations, with the progress in the medical science, end up, going to live well above 90 to 100 years.
Yeah.
So that brought a big smile to my face. And as a part of an answer to your question, that do I take a moment to think about these things? The answer is no, because it's just one third of my journey. I think we've got two-thirds ahead, and there's a lot more to achieve. It's always a humbling experience to, achieve what I have achieved. I do thank God, for the achievements that I've had so far. But I think there's no point sitting on the past laurels. It's equally important to contribute to the maritime sector, considering how we are evolving with the technological innovations, with the kind of government initiatives happening, with the kind of new regulations setting in, with the kind of green economy that you want to be. I think it's just the beginning of something more beautiful. So I don't let myself, dwell deeper into these thoughts, but I rather focus on the remaining 60 years of my life.
Sure. Well, Captain, I think it's a very selfless act the way you're speaking, but equally at the same time very humbling. And I think that it's important that we have more people like yourself within the industry to inspire this next generation. Speaking of inspiring the next generation, have you ever considered, or are you mentoring others who are following a similar path to yourself? And then on the flip side to that, have you ever had any mentors yourself?
Yeah. I believe that, with the present generation that we have, what we call Gen Zs, the ones who are out working right now and newly, begun their careers, it's the old age mentoring techniques won't probably work for them. We need to evolve, considering the millennials that we are and the Gen Zs, having a completely different set of expectations from the corporate sector. The focus being more on the work life balance, the focus being more on mental health and well being. I think we can't have a one size fits all kind of an approach with regard to mentoring. Uh, in the Western world, mentoring has often been an exchange, which often involves exchange of money. But the place where I come from, India, or the eastern part of the world, uh, mentoring has been more altruistic. I think they often believe in the concept of guru, in India, which is a Sanskrit and a Hindi word, which means somebody who's your guide, role model, your best friend, who guides you through thick and thin, somebody who is not just a professional guide to you, but also somebody who has a deep understanding of your personal perspectives, your inner beliefs, your mental well being, etc. So I think a mentoring for Gen Zs will involve not just professional mentoring, because that is just one part of their lives. We as millennials have spent almost two-thirds of our lives focusing on work and about one-third towards the personal family. But I think with the Gen Zs kicking in, they're trying to tilt it towards as 50-50 as possible. So I think it's very, very important, in if you're trying to be a mentor to someone today, it's very, very important to understand their personal life. It's very, very important to understand the school of thought that they belong to, and try and empathize with their situation, try and look into their perspective, and then offer them mentoring or advice. At the same time, I've had some fantastic mentors all through my career. uh, when I began my career with the Indian Navy, I had Commander Rajkumar, who was, leading us as the head of our academy with the Indian Navy, and he's shared some really interesting life lessons which I take up with me. Sharing one of his, popular quotes, I'd say he says that when you're on a table full of rich people, be the one with the maximum amount of currencies and not with the maximum amount of money. So what he meant by that was, you'll have a table which is full of rich people, but you'll never have a people full of people with as varied experience as you should believe in having for yourself. We work in a time where being a jack of all is more often than not more important than being a master of one. I think diversification, both in terms of skills, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your ability, is very, very important. Having varied, range of experiences is something that is very, very important, because you'll always end up finding somebody better than you, right? You can't just say that, I am, the smartest person in terms of, science. I'm the smartest person in the maritime sector. You will always end up finding somebody who will be better than you. But
Yeah.
I think what will differentiate you from the rest will be the kind of diversified experience that you have. So I think that is something that I take back from him. Besides that, another interesting thing that I would like to share with you with regard to mentors and leadership is uh, the chairman of the Caravel Group, Dr. Banga, who is the chairman of the uh, company that I work for at present. I met him at one of the seminars recently, and he identified me by the name. It was the first time I was, meeting him, and he identified me by the name. And I was very, very amazed looking at a person of his stature to identify someone. We've got 1,200 plus employees today with us. And to identify me by the name was itself a big thing. So I happened to ask him, sir, that how did you identify me? And his only explanation to that was that I know my people. And I think that's a very, very important trait of a leader, knowing his team and knowing his people. That creates a sense of loyalty towards the leadership, that creates a sense of loyalty towards the organization that you work with. And it also makes you believe that the organization values you and you're not just a mere number in those 1,200 employees that we have. I would also take, the name of Captain Rajalingam Subramaniam, who's our CEO with the Caravel Group Fleet Management, whose quote I just quoted to you with regard to empower, verify, validate, and trust. Also, Captain Deepak Korea, who's my boss at Fleet Management Limited. He's got a very interesting policy of an open door policy. He always has his door open for anybody. So I think approachability as a mentor or as a leader is something that I imbibe from him. Uh, and also, I would like to take the name of Captain Soma Sundar Nair, who's our executive director. I think these are the people who led from the front and brought the organization to the level where it is, after 30 years of where we belong today. And it's a great inspiration for us, future leaders as general managers who will be taking up in due course future leadership positions, that having an approachable leader is half the battle won. I think if your team fears approaching you, whether it is at sea or ashore, I think you've lost the battle to a certain extent there. So I think mentorship is more about approachability, is more about having a personal connect with our people today, and more about understanding the kind of person whom you're dealing with. So it's not a one rule that is applicable to all, but a custom or a tailor-made mentoring depending upon the kind of generation that you're dealing with.
Well said. I think your ability to be able to portray your understanding of the next generation and how they deliver mentoring, but then also complement so deeply those who have mentored you is fascinating. Because what's really resonating from this conversation, Captain, is that you speak more of a like a philosopher. You're clearly somebody that understands how humans work, and someone that studies this deeply. You have an MBA in HR, but I think that really stands out. Your ability to understand what humans require to make them tick, which is, as you said, exactly what a captain needs to have. And it's beautiful to hear. What's your opinion? I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this. What's your opinion on the role of social media? I know that in your country, social media is a very big. There's lots of big social media platforms in India now.
Biggest
Instagram,
consumers, right?
well, exactly, yeah. And I
Right.
speak to a lot of these guys, these Indian seafarer influencers, your Karanveer Singh Nairs, your Sailor Lenses, your Praneet Mertas. You know, there are lots of these guys, your Captain Samaf Sinha. There's lots of these guys and girls. Ramita, another lady an Indian lady from the cruise world. There are lots of these Indian young Gen Z and older seafarer social media stars. How important do you think this media is within maritime?
I think that's with the dissemination of social media and technology, I do believe it can be a double-edged sword at times, but more often than not, I do believe that it's something that contributes vastly in the field of maritime. The specific reason for that being, when I began my career at sea, and a lot of my seniors as well, there was probably no means of communication with your family. And today we come to a level where we've got Starlink or some wonderful Wi-Fi installed on ships, where you can connect with people, where you can connect with your own family members, when you can have a complete understanding of what's going on in the world. There's no more alienation as it used to be in the past. You don't have to rely on coming to ports to get the latest information. You're out at sea, but you're as connected to the world as you would be. There's a phrase in English which says being at sea, which means being all by yourself, being alone. And I think that no longer holds today, thanks to the presence of social media that we have. So I think the media plays a very important role in dissemination of information, in connecting to the youth and the youngsters who are the future of the maritime sector. People like you, these podcast sessions that I've listened to. You had Maria Dixon recently, who's doing a fantastic job. We've had a number of other guests. We've had maritime lawyers on your podcast who have been, speaking about certain rights of seafarers. I see you doing a lot of work with regard to abandonment of seafarers, crew welfare, etc. I think social media is an excellent platform for dissemination of such information. At the same time, I think responsible use of technology and social media is also something that is extremely important, because technology can be a double-edged sword in today's times. Uh, I think what people like you are doing, what a lot of other social media influencers are doing, is spreading a lot of positive information, spreading a lot of correct information with regard to seafaring as a profession, not just portraying it, on a golden platter or a silver spoon that you join merchant navy just to see the world. It's not just traveling to different parts of the world, but it's also a lot of hard work. It's also contributing to the society, and it's also being the backbone of the supply chain in the world. So right.
When you're ready.
So yeah, I think social media indeed plays an extremely important role, especially in the maritime sector. Why I say that is where I come from. When we started off, with our sailing careers, and a lot of my seniors as well would agree, the only means of communication with your family was probably when you reached the port. That was probably the only way of communicating to your family. And all across the oceans, you really wished for a very short voyage so that you would end up coming to a port soon to be able to communicate with your family. But I think in today's times, we all sit in our respective cabins. At the switch of a button, we have our Starlink or the Wi-Fi that we have on board, and are able to communicate with our family, be aware of what's going on in the world, and not just be mute spectators. Uh, Secondly, there's a phrase in English which says being at sea, which means being all by yourself, being alone, or being alienated. I think that is one phrase which doesn't quite hold good today with the advent of social media that we have. So, thanks to people like you, you have an amazing podcast. I have been fortunate enough to see the addition of Maria Dixon. You had a maritime lawyer in the past. You speak a lot about seafarers' rights, uh, legal rights of seafarers, crew welfare, etc. So I think spreading that, disseminating the right information in a responsible manner. I think that's something that is the need of the hour with social media coming in. On the hindsight, of course, technology also has a lot of shortcomings. There can be misuse of information. There can be promulgation of incorrect information. So it's extremely important for seafarers, who are a very vulnerable community considering the limited access and the limited resources that they have at sea, to not fall prey to such a situation, to verify what is being portrayed to them, verify what is being conveyed to them. My message, especially to the younger generation, is to not just be swindled by the fact that merchant navy is all about joining and traveling and seeing the world. It involves a lot of hard work. It involves a lot of commitment. It involves a lot of stay away from your family and friends. At the same time, it is extremely rewarding. It offers you a tremendous, blend of opportunities coupled with responsibilities that you get to see at a young age. Which particular profession would give a 20-year-old the responsibility to handle a multi-million dollar asset as a ship?
Hmm.
As a fresh OW, you are completely responsible as your watch officer for the entire safety of the vessel, for the crew, for the cargo, and the assets involved. As an interesting fact, I had this thing in me that I didn't quite want to get my driving license before I get my OW license. So I ended up getting my driver's license after my OW license. So that was something that I'd planned for myself. I would learn to run the bigger vessels first before learning to run the smaller ones that run on land. So that was a personal landmark for myself. So yeah, I do believe that technology plays a vital role. Social media plays a very important role for mariners, but at the same time, responsible dissemination of information, what people like you and a lot more social media influencers out here in India as well do, is actually required and is something that we really appreciate.
You said earlier on about how you think that the typical way of mentoring might not work any longer with the Gen Z. Do you think that social media can be used as a tool to mentor the next generation?
I absolutely believe that it's very true that social media can be used as a tool. Rather, internet per se, has reduced distances between us, right? You probably sit in UK, and I probably sit in Mumbai, and we are speaking to each other at present for Seafarer Social Podcast of yours, which is viewed by people across the globe. I think that itself is testimony to the fact that mentoring can be done, considering the fact that the world has shrunk.
Yeah.
I'll share with you something very interesting that we at in our organization Fleet Management Limited do, which I haven't quite seen in my previous organizations or any organization that I've been associated with or heard of. We have a division called Fleet Care. It is a division that takes end-to-end care of the personal, social, emotional, family well-being of all seafarers who are sailing on our vessels. So what this particular division does is that it takes care by forming WhatsApp groups with the family members of seafarers, WhatsApp groups with seafarers who are batchmates, promoting campaigns for mental health and well-being of seafarers. Uh, we have an in-house team of psychologists who are experts in dealing with Gen Zs, because we have a quite young crowd ashore as well in the fleet care division that takes care of issues pertaining to Gen Zs, dealing with seafarers who have issues such as depression, mental trauma, mental health issues, family issues back home. We even go to the extent of visiting seafarers and their families at home in case they have any issues. In case of medical issues, personal issues, a seafarer having a traumatic situation on board is all dealt with utmost priority. And I think that's one particular division that's doing a fantastic job. In most other companies, you'll end up seeing, one or two psychologists or a 24-hour helpline posted on the vessel, which probably isn't used by any of us. I think the real importance of giving, importance to mental health and well-being is in its execution, is in the results, is in the emphasis from the top management. So we are fortunate enough to have a top management that values in, giving worth to the mental health and well-being of people, and that's where the Gen Z culture comes into the picture. We need Gen Zs to be able to communicate and vent out themselves more than ever before. We're not the previous generation of seafarers who would sail for 12 months in a year at a trot and not worry about seeing their families back home and being very mentally strong. I do not mean to say that the present generation is not mentally strong, but what I say here today is that the present generation has a separate set of requirements as compared to the past generation. So I think mentoring works better with them when you are approachable, when you understand their scenarios, their situation, the kind of mental setup that they come from, the kind of personal background that they come from. And I think our fleet care team is doing a great job here with regard to ensuring that we have a huge team available at disposal of the seafarers, not just to take care of their professional needs, but also their mental health, their family needs. And secondly, we also run a mentoring program at Fleet Management Limited, which is specific to high potential seafarers, which are identified right at the start. Uh, we give them an allocated mentor who stays as their mentor throughout their journey with the company. And across every particular vessel that they're sailing with, they're in constant connection with their mentor. And the mentor continuously takes feedback from them, gets an idea about their personal aspirations, about their professional aspirations, and ends up guiding them professionally in having a successful career with the organization. So we catch them young, we catch them early, and we help guide them and mold them as good seafarers, as good human beings, as people with a high amount of emotional quotient, so that they can contribute towards our organization. So I think that's an approach that we need to adopt, and I believe that we as an organization are on the right page. And I think a lot of organizations can take note from the setup that we have at present, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the time when I speak to seafarers, they say, of course, one of the number one things for them is salary. But if you put salary to one side and that's taken care of, the next thing they want is they want their family looked after and supported in any
Right,
way. And if the company
right,
can help that, then they will. They want things like good food on board. They want to be have that nutrition. They want connectivity. And I think really the companies that are out there that are giving and working with seafarers to make sure that they have the most optimized palette of what's required for
right.
them to be the best seafarer are the ones that will develop the most outstanding crews. And the second point you made around mentoring, I think that's so important. And one of the things I think is really interesting about mentoring, which I recently had a conversation with a guy called Captain Andre Legubin, who is ex-president of the Nautical Institute. He said to me, mentoring has always been looked upon as a sort of a one-way path, right? So the mentor is giving back to the mentoree. But nowadays, with the evolution of technology and Gen Z's ability to understand it much quicker than any past generations, what we're seeing is that actually mentoring can be a two-way street. You know, the mentor who is involved, who's been a captain for 30 years, can teach the mentoree about navigation, and the mentoree can teach the captain about LinkedIn. It can be a two-way street, and I think that's very beautiful. The final thing I wanted to talk to you about, Captain, before we wrap up, is your country, India. I think India is a very, very, very interesting country. We're talking about India as rapidly growing in an economic perspective because there's over 1 billion people there, whatever. It's typically always been um, a country that exports goods, and now it's importing goods, which typically means that we're seeing a rise in the middle class, which then usually leads to a much wealthier country as a whole. Um, with that being said, though, how does this reflect in the maritime side of things? I think that India is the fourth or fifth biggest labor market for seafarers after China and the Philippines. Maybe it's even third. I don't know, but what is the landscape looking for the India maritime sector?
Yeah. So I think, with the initiatives being taken by the present government, which is also reflecting and percolating onto shipping companies as well, it's a very interesting fact to note that we almost have one of the world's highest base of, foreign shipping companies in India. It's one of the countries which has the highest base of a lot of shipping companies having their reach in India, which, in terms of volumes, contributes to a really big number. Uh, as you aptly said, we are probably the third or the fourth largest seafarer manpower providing nation in the world today. But if we just talk purely in terms of officers, I'm pretty much sure from my understanding of the industry, we are pretty much in the top two
Yeah, I
in terms of
agree.
officers alone. But if you club officers with ratings, we would probably be on the third or the fourth in numbers. We as a company itself, as fleet management itself, we employ over 18,000 Indian seafarers and a total of more than 27,000 seafarers. So 18,000 seafarers alone in the organization that I work with. So that itself can tell you the volumes that we deal with in India. Besides this, in the last 10 years, there has been a huge paradigm shift towards focus on growth and development within the country. The government policies have been quite conducive. We recently had a program called Sagar Mein Samman, which means respect in the field of the maritime sector, which was specifically honoring women in maritime sector for diversity and inclusion. We had a very interesting felicitation in our office a few days back, where one of the first master mariners from our fleet management limited, Captain Deepthi Singh, was felicitated. And at the felicitation ceremony, one of the delegates happened to say, the real success of diversity and inclusion, in the maritime sector would be when we would stop associating a tag, a female master, to a master. When you would just call a female master a master, that
Yeah.
would be the true respect, because that would be the moment when you would stop differentiating between a gender. Uh, and also when you would have to stop having such felicitation ceremonies for lady seafarers in order to encourage them, because felicitation itself is a gesture that you do to honor something which is revolutionary, something which is a great step. But when we have so many lady seafarers in the sector, that we would stop having the need to felicitate them would be the true success of this particular initiative. So that's something that the government of India is also taking very, very strongly. It's something we as an organization, fleet management, is also taking very, very strongly. The present maritime sector has about 2% of women seafarers. uh, we as an organization are looking at a target of having 10% by the time we touch 2030. So that's a huge target that we have in front of us. We already have a couple of lady master mariners within our organization and a lot of other lady seafarers, and the count is only on the rise. So I think DNI initiatives are something that the government of India is also taking very, very strongly. We have another government of India program called Sagarmala. India has a 7,000 kilometer plus coastline, and I think there's a lot of underutilization that has been, so far, considering the size of the coastline that we have. You look at countries like Singapore, you look at maritime hubs like Dubai. With the limited coastline that they have, they've built up an empire. Singapore today or Dubai today is a maritime hub. You go to Fujairah or you go to Singapore, you have all kinds of availability, be it stores, provisions, bunkering, etc. You name it and you get it at Singapore or Dubai. I think the Indian government is also shifting on those lines. They are developing a project for the expansion of ports within the country. They are dredging and building up deeper ports within the country, bigger container terminals, bigger gas terminals, bigger oil terminals, etc. And through these particular initiatives, I think there is going to be a lot of positive, development in the maritime sector. For the first time in many years since I have joined my profession, we today have the Directorate General of Shipping personally coming and visiting a lot of shipping companies. He
Wow.
happened to visit us a few days back to discuss about the new initiatives that they are taking. So for a government entity to visit private companies, of course, they're visiting the bigger organizations like ours and propagating, their new projects, the kind of initiatives that they are taking, the kind of initiatives they take for mental health and well-being. I think it's phenomenal to see the kind of paradigm shift that has taken place, in the recent past. Uh, Also a lot of initiatives with regard to medical health and well-being for seafarers. The government of India has recently launched a project with regard to medical insurance for seafarers. You'll be surprised to know that we as an organization have probably the highest marine insurance for seafarers and their families, which is about $100,000 for seafarers and their families, which is probably one of the best in the industry in India. Uh, Besides that, the kind of initiatives taken for mental health and well-being, for crew welfare, etc. I'm proud to share with you that we've also been awarded the ESG award recently and the Hong Kong Ship Manager of the Year award 2024 for the kind of initiatives we've taken for seafarer health, marine welfare, well-being of seafarer, and the overall services that we provide to our seafarers. So I think the focus of the government is ultimately percolating on a lot of large maritime organizations here in India, a lot of foreign companies based out of India, which is ultimately benefiting the end users, who are our seafarers today. So uh, these initiatives and the focus on the human element today is doing a great deal. Something else that I would like to speak about is also the difference between human element and human factor. When we have an incident today or an accident today, it's very, very easy for landlubbers, who are sitting ashore as armchair critics to say that, this particular accident or incident happened due to human error or due to seafarers not being responsible, or due to XYZ. I think it's time that we be a bit more sensitive about understanding the intricacies in the maritime industry. Seafarers are often easy scapegoats to a lot of things. So it's very very important for us to understand that maritime industry is full of a lot of dynamics, a lot of variables, a lot of factors, sometimes which are beyond the control of humans alone. So a human element per se is something which is the internal factor or something intrinsic pertaining to a seafarer. Whereas human factors are the factors which a seafarer is interacting with, be it
Yeah.
people, be it technology, be it various interfaces. So stating that something was a result of human error is a very very vague and a very very simple statement to make. But when you dwell deeper into the intricacies of it, when you deep dive beyond root cause analysis to close out reports to satisfy third parties, is when you actually understand that human factor and human elements are two different, components, and it's very very important to give importance to human and organizational principles. What we talk about today, uh, before we end up commenting on anything. So I do know that IMO recently, you would surely be aware, we had a session on human factors and
Yeah.
human and organizational principles. So I think that is a great step in dissemination of information. It's a great step and a learning lesson for a lot of shipping companies for the future crop of seafarers coming in, that whenever any accident or incident takes place, just blaming and saying human error was responsible for this is not a solution. You are going to have fancy reports, Swiss cheesecake models, or root cause analysis made, and ultimately, blaming it down to the seafarer. But I think true organizational development will be in strengthening processes. That's something that I personally have done. As an AGM in FPD tankers, I do a lot of initiatives towards process improvement. As you said, we require a two-way mentoring. So we have recently introduced a seafarer briefing program. We've so far briefed more than 2,000, 2,500 seafarers through this initiative. And we have a daily interaction one-on-one with our seafarers prior to their joining. We brief them about a lot of new developments in the maritime sector, what the company is doing per se, and also take 20 minutes of this for a Q&A, seafarer queries, seafarer complaints, grievance redressal, etc. Uh, it's initiative from the top management. We have the CEO joining in at times. We have the directors joining in at times. So it makes seafarers feel valued, that they are not just a mere voice, but they have direct access to the top management. They have direct access to people, and their suggestions are valued and can make an impact. So I think it's something that's extremely important. Seafarers have often been the scapegoat. I think it's high time that they get their due. It's high time that they get valued for what they do, and not very easily blamed as is being done at present.
I agree. And I completely echo everything you said. And I think it's fantastic, some of the frameworks that your company has built in to support the seafarers. And I do think that quite often when we place blame on human error, I do think it's a little bit of a cop out, because you're right, there's a lot more layers to it than just human error. And quite often what we find is that human error typically spurs from a technical error or a cultural error. And I think that they're the sort of things we need to work on, and hopefully, the organisations like the IMO can delegate more policies that support this. But also, as an industry, I think speaking to our seafarers, and like you said, the importance of actually sitting and speaking to the seafarers, because so often I find that people speak on behalf of seafarers. We know what's best for the seafarers, instead of actually working with them and asking them themselves. And also, it's beautiful to hear just how serious the country of India is taking this sector. I truly believe that India will become one of the major powerhouses of maritime, not just from the perspective of the labour market, but also, as you rightly said, developing ports, building their own shipping companies. You are right. I've heard many people say that there's actually no point of starting a crewing agency in India, because almost every single major shipping company has an in-house recruitment service already within India, which just goes to show you that globally, shipping is looking to India as the future for maritime. And yes, I know for a fact that India produced the most amount of chief engineers, and they are one of the highest producing countries of officers, period. Um, but just to final things off, Captain, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I hope that we can meet in person. I plan to come to India at some point in the next couple of months. It'd be great to hang out with you in Mumbai, and I hope that we can, have a
Yeah,
coffee and catch up.
sure. It's been an absolute pleasure, Carl. I think the way you perceive things, the way you have the focus on detail, the kind of questions that you put forth to me, I think it's very very clear that you are working and your podcast is working on a very very positive note. It's not all glitz, the kind of social media influencing that we have today. We often observe that it's all glitz and breaking news headlines, etc., which just attracts attention, but doesn't quite have the content that perhaps helps you stay through. But I think the kind of content that you are building is going to stay through, stay in the minds of people, both youngsters, people, whether they're sailing, whether they're working across the maritime sectors ashore, the kind of initiatives you take for D&I also, diversity and inclusion, by incorporating a lot of lady seafarers from the sector. I think it's a great initiative. When you walk into an office today, your and mine office, a corporate office that we work in today, sitting on our air-conditioned cabins, etc. It's very, very easy to see 50% of our staff being women.
You don't
But
even think
it's
twice about it. You don't even
yeah,
think
yeah, right.
twice.
Right, right. You think it's very, very normal. But then it's very, very hard to see that in the maritime sector. And that's something that we need to really, really work upon and improve. Make conditions conducive for women to thrive in the maritime sector. Uh, make things, just for them, fair for them. Give them an equal working ground, on par with the other gender. And that is what will help us build, a future crop. As a rainbow is incomplete without any of its colors, I think we are also incomplete without the opposite gender. It's not for nothing that we call them our better halves, right? So I think only when both the halves combine is when we'll be able to build up a better sector, a more inclusive sector, and a sector that focuses on growth and development. I think their perspective being added to the sector will be a big boon for the shipping fraternity. And I think I really congratulate you for the kind of job that you're doing, and really thank you for having me on the show, because it was an extreme pleasure to talk to you, and very happy to be associated with the cause that you are, propagating.
Thank you, Captain. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in person. By the way, did you have a nice time on the weekend for the Festival of Colors?
Yes, of course. We had a great celebration right at Fleet Management's office as well. So we had a complete celebration in our office across different sectors. Despite being busy with the leadership training that I had, we took time to complete that training, come back to office just for the holy celebrations. And yes, we did have celebrations at home as well. So overall, it was a great experience. And yeah, looking forward to having you and hosting you in India when you're coming here.
Likewise, and if you ever come to London, let me know. I'll definitely take care of you. Thank you, Captain. See you
Sure, sure.
soon.
Sure. Thank you so much, Carl. See you.